So this video is going to be all about Aucuba, but it's definitely specifically Aucuba japonica. That's the main Aucuba species that we use in ornamental horticulture. There are, in the genus Aucuba, I think 10 species now. There were at one time only 3, but it's been expanded to 10. But again, in ornamental horticulture, we're using Aucuba japonica, and there are some absolutely incredible variegations, spotting on the leaves, green foliage varieties, different shaped varieties. And if you stick around to the end of the video, we're going to do a portion of the end of the video is just showing off some absolutely incredible Aucuba varieties. When you go shopping for Aucuba, unfortunately, a lot of times you're just going to see gold dust, maybe one that's slightly more colorful with a little more yellow in it, and then you're going to see maybe some green variety. So unfortunately, it's been kind of isolated to some specialty nurseries over the years. There's really no reason for that. This Hosaba Hoshifu is the name of this particular variety, is actually just as easy to root as any other. So there's really no reason why this plant wouldn't be readily available in most garden centers and even box stores, really, because it's a fairly easy plant to grow. So common name for these is spotted laurels, but they're not actually laurels. They're not really related to laurels. They're in a plant family called the Garryaceae. Used to be in the Aucuba Aceae, and now they're in a plant family with one other genus in that plant family other than Aucuba. This plant is dioecious, meaning it has male or female parts typically. Some have been reported to be able to self-pollinate, but I've never actually observed that. And most of the named varieties out in the world, or cultivars out in the world, like this Hosaba Hoshifu, are female. So this was a female variety, which happens to have the showier flowers between the male and the female. But they do need the male in order to produce the beautiful red fruit that they get. But these are all female clones. So if you have a female plant and then you take a cutting off of it and you root that, you just made a clone, and a clone is going to be the same male or female. So gold dust Aucuba you can get as either male or female. The regular spotted Aucuba japonica that you see kind of all over the place is male or female. The male flowers are a little closer to the stem. The female flowers are slightly showier. You really would have to know what you're looking for. But in order for me to get fruit on this particular female plant, I need a male variety here in the garden. And they bloom on new growth. So these could be cut potentially in the late winter, and then the new growth on them is where we would see the flowers. This is a part shade or shade plant. It's a very important plant in ornamental landscaping because the texture of this thing, this one has a fairly narrow leaf, and you'll see at the end of the video as we show off some of the varieties, you'll see kind of roundish, shorter leaves that are more like this. You'll see really big, broad leaves on them, and again, different variegations, different amounts of spotting on the leaves, yellow striping on the leaf, just a lot of variation, or then solid green ones. And I don't overlook the solid green ones. I've used a lot of them in my landscape jobs over the years, and they're incredibly, incredibly showy. This variety, Hosaba Hoshifu, we have an individual video on the channel for. When the new growth is coming out, the spotting is yellow, and then it becomes white in time, which is super, super interesting. This one has reached about 4 feet. Most of the varieties are going to get between 6 and 10 feet in height, but can be kept smaller than that. In most gardens, we're going to see Aucubas kept a little smaller than that. But then there are ones that have been selected, like Mellow Mushroom we have here in the garden, which is a Plant Delights, one that they introduced, I think, last year. That's more of a mounding, wider habit, so a wider growth habit, lower growing. They're evergreen. If you just look up Aucuba japonica, you'll see that most places are going to say they're hardy from zone 6A to 9. I think you're going to want to make sure the one you're buying is definitely hardy in zone 6 if you are in zone 6. So mostly it's going to be the greener varieties. Once you get into the more yellow color or variegation you have in a plant, a lot of times the less chlorophyll it has through the winter, which is stored sugars that get it through that winter. Also, if you were in zone 5B before the map update and now you're in zone 6A, it may be a little too cold. If you get a normal 5B winter, which you would expect occasionally, I don't think they're going to be hardy for you. Also, in zone 6, you're going to want them out of the winter wind. By the time you get down into zone 7B, 8, and 9, you know, they can be out in more open space during the winter time. When I say shade plants, they're from an area around moist stream banks and that kind of thing. So typically they come from areas of the world where, areas where it's moist shade conditions. They don't like to sit in water, but they like to stay kind of evenly moist. The place where this one is growing is an area that's fairly moist for us, consistently moist. And this one was this tall when it went in the ground from a 1-gallon pot 2 years ago, and look at it. It has just exploded. We have an Aucuba on the back line in our garden here, and it's in dry shade. These will adapt to dry shade over time. But that plant is half the height of this one, and it's been there in the ground longer than this one. So you can see the growth difference, by having a little bit of moisture in place. Again, they will adapt to kind of dry shade, but you need to keep an eye on it. I will see in really dry spaces where they haven't been watered at all for a prolonged period of time, you'll see them lose limbs. You'll get some blackening of the foliage, and they'll start to decline in the future. I've just always thought that, this is one of the showier things that we can put into our shade gardens. And there's so much, I could actually make a garden out of Aucuba, a shade garden out of Aucuba with the various shapes of the plants and the shapes of the leaves and all the different variegations. I think you could have an entire garden just based on this one plant. It's been an important plant in ornamental horticulture. Most nurseries grow Aucuba, again, in a very narrow number of varieties that they grow. But it has been, again, an important part of ornamental horticulture. You can go to gardens like the J.C. Ralston Arboretum or a Juniper Level Botanic Garden and see a big collection of these. It really will change your perspective when you see them in a garden, in a shade garden, used with other ground covers and other leafy evergreens and other, taller growing plants, and see how much this type of plant can brighten some of those dark spaces. I think the biggest problematic thing with this plant would be trying to identify a male plant that you could use. You just need a male Aucuba japonica in your garden, and it would pollinate any of these named cultivars that are out in the world. One of the things that's interesting is the plants inherit the color from the female plant. So if I take a spotted female plant like Hosaba hoshifu here, and I cross it with a green male plant, all the seedlings are going to be some sort of spotted. Are going to get this from the mother, okay, which is kind of interesting. If I use a male or a female green one with a spotted male one, like a male gold dust Aucuba, then I'm going to get green ones in the seedlings, which that's fairly interesting to me. That it inherits the traits from the mother, from the female plant. Maintenance-wise, really very simple. You need to put them in a part shade or shade space. They would prefer consistent moisture, but again can adapt to drier spaces. And since they bloom on new woods, you could cut them in the late winter if you needed to size control them. Once they're well established, you could probably get after this. I could probably get after this thing pretty hard during the late winter, early spring if I needed to cut it in half and kind of reset it. I would, based on the variety that you're buying, kind of put it in a place where you can allow it to do what it does. And so this one is, as you can see, is kind of a more upright, narrow variety. It can be allowed to get 6 feet here and 3 or 4 feet wide without a problem. We have lower growing ones here in the garden. They get a little wider. So kind of pick one that will kind of fit the space, and then you don't have to do a whole lot of pruning on them in the future. Again, the new growth on a lot of the variegation, of the ones that are variegated, is quite a bit more showy. So a little bit of tip pruning on it in the late winter may produce a little more of that new growth like this one has. But again, I love this plant, super low maintenance. We plant them, we have clay soil here. They don't mind that. We mound them up a little bit when we plant them. They're urban tolerant, so pollution and that kind of thing, and just don't really cause us any problems here in the garden and show off 12 months out of the year. So here are some really amazing Aucuba japonica varieties.